She walked out, leaving him with 5 children and a shattered heart. Everyone said he wouldn't make it, that he'd break. But instead, he built something no one expected. 10 years later, she came back, hoping to pick up where she left off. But what she found wasn't the same man, and certainly not the same family. What happened next shocked her to the core, and will leave you speechless. This is a story of strength, sacrifice, and a father who refused to give up. Post in the comments where are you watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the latest stories. David Morgan awoke to the sound of quiet murmurs and the soft rustle of sheets in their modest Ohio home. The pale light of early dawn filtered through the thin curtains into the cramped room he shared with his 5 children, and with Tina, the woman who had been the heart of their little family. Today, however, something was terribly amiss. As David blinked away the remnants of sleep, his eyes fell upon the empty side of the bed. The space that had once held Tina now seemed haunted by a profound absence. Trembling, he reached out and found, resting on a worn pillow, a small, hastily scrawled note. The note read simply, "I'm sorry, I just can't do this anymore." For a long, agonizing moment, time seemed to freeze. The note's stark words struck him like a cold wind, leaving his heart pounding in disbelief. There was no sign of departure, a final conversation, a whispered goodbye, just the empty space and the words that confirmed his worst fears. Tina had left without explanation, vanishing from their lives in an instant. As the shock reverberated through him, the children's creaky footsteps filled the hallway. One by one, they emerged from their small bunks with wide, uncertain eyes. The eldest, attempting to be brave despite the tremor in his voice, asked, "Where's Mom?" The question rippled through the room, met by confused, tearful faces. Their innocent, heartfelt cries mingled with David's silent grief, deepening the unspeakable loneliness of the morning. In that fragile moment, panic and despair threatened to overwhelm him. How could he possibly manage the day, and all the days to come, without Tina's guiding presence? The responsibility for 5 young lives pressed on him like an avalanche of duty and sorrow. Yet, even as the weight of abandonment threatened to shatter his resolve, a quiet inner determination began to stir. An unyielding instinct reminded him that, despite his own devastation, his children needed him now more than ever. With a deep, shuddering breath, David stepped away from the bed, his mind reeling with 1,000 unspoken questions. He shuffled into the small, creaking kitchen, a place that, until now, had been filled with shared laughter and the aroma of home-cooked meals. Now, every sound in the empty space, each clink of a spoon and the distant hum of a refrigerator, echoed the stark reality of his new life. His hands, still trembling from shock and sorrow, reached for the ingredients of breakfast. As he broke a few eggs, a lump formed in his throat. Every measured step felt like a monumental act of defiance against the hopelessness threatening to overwhelm him. Yet, with each careful stir of the batter and each slice of toast he prepared, David realized that survival was more than just an instinct. It was an act of love for his children. Even as tears blurred his vision, he forced himself to smile gently at the little ones gathering around the kitchen table. Their eyes, still brimming with confusion, looked to him for guidance. In that moment, David silently vowed to hold the family together, even as his own heart bled from the loss. He didn't know how life would continue without Tina, but he understood that the journey toward a new beginning would have to start with this first, shattering, yet transformative morning. With his trembling hands cradling a steaming bowl of oatmeal, David Morgan began what would be the first step in rebuilding a life he never imagined possible. A life defined not by abandonment, but by the unbreakable bond of love and the courage to face a future unknown. That harrowing morning marked the beginning of a life David never wished to lead. Yet it also ignited within him a fierce determination to hold his broken family together. As the sun rose higher, David gathered his children for breakfast amid a palpable silence and unspoken pain. Every little face, still touched by fresh tears and uncertainty, reminded him that despite the emptiness left behind by Tina's departure, he had a vital purpose: to be the pillar, the nurturer, and the hero his children needed. Their wide, searching eyes filled him with both heartache and an overwhelming sense of duty. Their smiles, when they mustered one, were his only solace. In the weeks that followed, David plunged into an exhausting routine designed to fill the void left by abandonment. He juggled his multiple roles with a mixture of desperate determination and tentative hope. Between preparing school lunches, managing household chores, and ensuring the little ones made it to class on time, David squeezed in long hours at work, a struggle that took him from dawn until late into the night. Every shift was a battle against the overwhelming odds stacked against him. A modest paycheck that barely stretched to cover bills, groceries, and the unexpected costs of caring for 5 rapidly growing children. Then came the first serious blow. One crisp morning, as David arrived at his main job, a position he had clung to as the family's financial backbone, he was met by an air of cold indifference. Without much ceremony, his supervisor informed him that due to budget cuts and the company's shifting priorities, his position was being terminated. The words fell like a bombshell, reverberating through David's already fragile resolve. The sense of betrayal and defeat was merciless. Not only was he facing the loss of income, but the sting of rejection threatened to shatter what little hope he still managed to cling to. When David returned home, heavy with the weight of this new setback, he felt as though the universe had turned its back on him. The knock at the door came unexpectedly. A gentle, caring knock that belied the sternness of his troubled thoughts. It was Mrs. Gray, an elderly neighbor who had watched over him and his children for years. With soft eyes and a warm smile, she entered his modest home, immediately enveloping him in an unsaid reassurance. "David," she said in a quiet but firm tone, "I've seen you fight every day, even when life seems impossible. I know it's hard right now, but you are doing more than most ever do for those you love." Over steaming cups of tea, Mrs. Gray listened intently as David poured out his fears and frustration. Her gentle words, filled with decades of wisdom, reminded him that his struggle was not a mark of failure, but a testament to his unyielding love for his children. She offered practical advice, small ideas to help manage the daily chaos and reminders that there were still resources within their community that could lend a hand. As the days turned into weeks, those simple acts of kindness and encouragement from Mrs. Gray became the pillars on which David began to rebuild his sense of self. Every time he saw his children's determined faces as they faced the day, he drew strength from her support and from the unspoken promise he made that fateful morning, to overcome every obstacle, no matter how insurmountable it seemed. Slowly, something began to change within him, an inner transformation sparked by the very adversity that sought to break him. His struggles, instead of defining his limitations, started to forge a character resilient enough to adapt, learn, and grow. Though the challenges continued to mount, David discovered that his heart, bolstered by the love for his children and the solidarity offered by trusted neighbors like Mrs. Gray, could push him forward. In the midst of a seemingly endless uphill battle, every small victory, a child's laugh, a shared meal, a kind word, became proof that hope could still blossom in the bleakest of times. 5 years had passed since that fateful, shattered morning, a span of time during which David Morgan had transformed both his own life and the lives of his children. The hard days of working multiple jobs and barely keeping the family afloat had given way to a season of resilience, growth, and quiet triumph. With every hurdle overcome, David became not only a testament to unwavering determination, but also a pillar of strength in his small Ohio community. In time, David poured his heart and soul into learning new skills and exploring his hidden talents. What began as a desperate means of survival gradually evolved into an opportunity for independence. With the support of trusted neighbors and community figures like Mrs. Gray, he managed to open his very own workshop, a modest space humming with the sounds of creativity and hard work. Here, surrounded by tools and the steady rhythm of industry, David discovered a passion for carpentry and repair work. Every custom piece he crafted, every routine maintenance job he completed, carried with it a message of hope, that adversity can forge strength and skill, turning raw potential into tangible success. At the same time, his children began to blossom in their own ways. The eldest son, once burdened by the uncertainty of their future, emerged as an honor student with a keen mind and a gentle spirit. His academic achievements became a shining example for his siblings and a source of pride for the entire community. Meanwhile, one of his daughters discovered her talent in sports, excelling on the school team with a determination that mirrored her father's own perseverance. The remaining children, though still young, began to show signs of passion and purpose in various pursuits, each one a small victory in the wake of the family's struggle. David's daily routine was no longer filled solely with the grim necessity of survival. Instead, it was imbued with a purpose that stretched far beyond earning a paycheck. His workshop steadily grew into a thriving business that not only provided for his family, but also became a local hub where neighbors sought his advice and assistance. Whether it was mending a broken chair, crafting a new piece of furniture, or simply sharing a kind word, David's relentless work ethic and generous spirit earned him the admiration and respect of everyone around him. Community events often spotlighted his journey from despair to dignity. At local gatherings, people would recount the inspiring story of the man who had faced abandonment with courage and transformed his life against overwhelming odds. David, ever modest, never boasted about his achievements. Instead, he credited the unyielding support of his children and the belief that, even in the harshest circumstances, love and perseverance could create a future filled with promise. In the eyes of the town's residents, he had become a quiet hero, a man who not only kept his family together, but also redefined what it meant to be resilient in the face of life's most crushing challenges. Though the scars of the past still whispered in quiet moments, they no longer dictated David's path. With every new day in his bustling workshop and through every accolade his children earned, he found affirmation that the fight was worthwhile. The community, once skeptical of a single father's ability to hold everything together, now celebrated his relentless spirit and his ability to forge a better tomorrow from the rubble of yesterday's heartbreak. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when the familiar hum of the town was suddenly pierced by unexpected news. A woman, long absent, had returned. Tina Morgan, once the pillar of David's family, now reappeared after 10 long years. Her transformation was as stark as it was painful. Tired and disheveled, she moved with a heavy, burdened pace, as if every step carried the weight of regret and sorrow. The vibrant community of their small Ohio town buzzed with whispers, and many wondered if this broken soul still held a place in the family she had so abruptly abandoned. David had long since become a pillar of strength, his life evolving in ways no one could have predicted. It was in his bustling workshop, now a symbol of his perseverance and newfound independence, that he first heard of Tina's return. His calloused hands, hardened by years of labor and sacrifice, paused as the news reached him. He had built a life for his children, a life filled with resilience and hope, transforming the once shattered remnants of his family into a beacon of community strength. That evening, as the sky deepened into twilight and the town settled into a quiet, expectant calm, Tina approached the modest home that David had remodeled and filled with laughter. She paused at the doorway, hesitating before stepping into a scene utterly transformed from the life she once knew. In the welcoming glow of the living room, David stood, a man no longer defined by desperation, but by strength and quiet dignity. His face, once marked by the strain of endless nights and ceaseless struggle, now exuded a calm resolve and a deep, grounded wisdom. The transformation was undeniable. He was not the man she had left behind, but someone forged in the fire of hardship, a figure of respect in both the eyes of his neighbors and in the proud, confident gazes of his children. The children, too, had grown in her absence. Those little faces, once etched with fear and longing at the time of her departure, were now filled with determination and vibrant hope. The eldest, who had taken on responsibilities beyond his years, smiled shyly at the sight of her. Others exchanged uncertain glances, the silent language of hurt and abandonment lingering in their eyes. As Tina stepped hesitantly inside, the room fell into a heavy silence. Her eyes, lowered in remorse, met David's steady gaze, a silent acknowledgement of the deep wounds that had never quite healed. For a long moment, neither spoke, the air thick with unasked questions and unmet expectations. Tina had returned with the hope of reclaiming what she once thought she had lost, believing that time might, some way, erase the harsh memories of her departure. Instead, she found a family that had learned to flourish despite her absence. Each corner of the room, every echoing laughter and gentle tease shared among the children, was a testament to a life built on resilience and renewed love. The man who had once endured heartbreak and isolation had become a hero in his own right, not just to his children, but to the community that had rallied around him. And now, in the quiet confrontation of her return, Tina was forced to face the irrevocable truth. The life she had left behind was no longer the fragile, desperate existence she had escaped. It had been rebuilt, stronger, wiser, and undeniably complete. The following morning, an uneasy tension hung in the air as Tina, desperate to mend the broken bonds of the past, mustered the courage to speak with the children. In the softly lit living room, she sat down with David's children, expecting to find forgiveness and to rebuild a part of the family that had been lost. But what greeted her was a raw and unfiltered outpouring of emotions. A truth the children had long buried, but now could no longer be concealed. One by one, the voices of the children rose, tentative at first but growing firmer with each passing moment. Their eyes, reflecting years of small, stubborn pains, held no trace of the tender adulation that might have once been reserved for their mother. Instead, they fixed her with a gaze tinted with both sadness and resentment. The air cooled with the chill of memories that had festered in silence over the years. Tina, her voice quivering as she tried to bridge the divide, asked softly, "Can we talk about what happened? About that day?" Her tone was laced with regret and a hint of longing, an earnest effort to reopen a chapter that had been closed with so much hurt. But the children had little patience for evasions. The eldest, his eyes steady despite the pain, replied, "We always wondered why you left without a word." His tone was calm yet heavy with the weight of a truth that had haunted him through turbulent nights. Not to be overlooked, the middle child added, "Mom, you disappeared when we needed you most. We were scared, confused." Each word was a dagger of remembrance, forcing Tina to confront the silent suffering of those she had abandoned. It was then that the youngest daughter, her voice small yet piercing, finally broke through the emotionally charged atmosphere. With trembling resolve, she asked, "Why did you leave us when we needed you the most?" Her innocent words carried a profound sorrow, a plea not just for an explanation but for the comfort of maternal presence that had been so desperately missed. For a long, suspended moment, the room was filled with the honest echo of their shared pain. The children, having waited so long to give voice to their hurt, stood as living witnesses to the consequences of a single decision. Their truth was both an indictment and a painful release, a reminder that the actions of the past could not easily be erased, no matter how much one might hope for forgiveness. Tina's eyes welled with tears as she absorbed the weight of their words. Her heart broke at the realization of how deeply her absence had scarred each of them. She tried to speak, to offer some justification or to express remorse, but the words faltered. The truth was too complex. It was tangled with her own regrets and the silent stories of betrayal she had once endured. Yet, even as she stammered apologies and half-formed explanations, the children's eyes remained steadfast, demanding to be heard rather than placated. In that intense moment of confrontation, the room pulsed with a pain that neither time nor forced reconciliation could easily heal. The children's candid admission set the stage for a deeper reckoning, a confrontation not only with Tina's past mistakes but also with the paths that each of them had been forced to follow in her absence. As the morning gave way to a solemn afternoon, the truth spoken by the children marked a turning point. Tina found herself facing the undeniable reality of her past choices while David's children, with their unyielding honesty, challenged her to acknowledge the wounds she had inflicted. The silent house was now alive with voices demanding accountability, a chorus of truth echoing through the corridors of a home forever altered by loss. In the quiet aftermath of the children's raw revelations, the tension in the house reached its breaking point. The air was heavy with unspoken secrets and the ghosts of a painful past. That evening, after a long day filled with the echoes of hurtful questions, Tina and David found themselves alone in the dim light of the living room. The fragile calm was shattered when, with trembling vulnerability, Tina finally revealed the truth. A truth that had long lingered in the shadows. With tears streaming down her face, Tina confessed that she hadn't left because of the financial burdens or the suffocating strain of daily life. Instead, her departure had been driven by a secret pain, a brief, yet devastating entanglement with another man. This man, who had promised her solace and excitement, had ultimately abandoned her just a year later, leaving her shattered. Overwhelmed by a mix of guilt and despair, Tina chose to flee from a situation she felt trapped in, not realizing that her escape would embroil her family in deeper wounds. David listened in silence as her words spilled out like fragments of a long-repressed nightmare. Deep inside, he had always suspected that Tina's departure was cloaked in more than mere financial desperation. Late one restless night, when he'd found old letters tucked away in a drawer and whispered hints from acquaintances, he had begun to piece together the truth. Yet, for the sake of their children, he had never spoken a word. He had allowed the silence to shield his little ones from yet another betrayal, approaching each day with a determined, albeit painful, resolve to make it through. Now, confronted with the raw confession of the woman he once loved, Tina's remorse filled every corner of the room. She pleaded desperately, her voice cracking with emotion. "David, please forgive me. I was lost and I made a horrible mistake. I never meant for our family to suffer. I'm so terribly sorry." Her eyes searched his, hoping to find even a flicker of the forgiveness she so desperately needed. David's expression was a mixture of sorrow and resolve. His heart ached, not only for the choices Tina had made, but for the unspoken burden he had carried for years. In a measured, steady tone, he finally spoke. "Tina, I forgave you a long time ago. I know you were hurting, and I know you had your reasons. But the truth is, trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. I've always put our children first. I kept silent so they wouldn't feel the sting of your abandonment all over again. That silence, however, wasn't just for them. It was also for me." A long, painful pause ensued, filled with the weight of years lost and opportunities that could never be reclaimed. "I forgive you," David continued, his voice quiet yet firm. "But I can't promise that things will ever be the way they were. Trust is fragile. Once it's shattered, it takes more than words to mend it." His eyes glistened with unshed tears as he acknowledged the irrevocable change in their lives. The forgiveness he offered was real, but it came with the sober admission that Tina's absence and betrayal had left a permanent mark on the family. In that moment, the room bore witness to the unyielding truth. While forgiveness could soften the edges of past wounds, it could not restore what had been irrevocably altered. Tina's confession, the painful truth of her choices, could never be entirely forgiven, at least, not in the same way it once might have been. The children, who had already felt the sting of that absence, now faced the reality that trust might never be fully reclaimed. Thus, as the night deepened around them, the unspoken understanding settled. Some truths, once revealed, change everything. And while forgiveness might be offered, the scars of betrayal remain. A silent reminder that some choices, even when repented, leave trust irreparably broken. After the heartbreaking revelations and shattered trust of the past, David Morgan reached a turning point. He realized that clinging to the remnants of a life defined by betrayal would only hold him back. With quiet determination and a gentle resolve born of years of struggle, he made the definitive choice. He would no longer be a part of Tina's past. Instead, he would embrace a future built for himself and the children he so lovingly raised. In the months that followed, David began to reconstruct his world with purpose. The community that had once marveled at his resilience now stood witness to his transformation into a beacon of hope. His workshop continued to flourish, serving as both a place of creative expression and a source of steady income. More importantly, every smile from his children, now blossoming into capable, determined young individuals, reaffirmed that his tireless efforts were not in vain. Amid this period of renewal, fate reintroduced him to a woman who had quietly been a part of his life for several years. A compassionate, dedicated doctor from the local hospital named Dr. Emily Carter. Emily had first met David when she volunteered at a community event, and her warmth and genuine care for every soul she encountered resonated deeply with him. Over time, her kindness had offered him solace and the promise of a future free of bitterness. Their friendship matured slowly, built upon shared values and the mutual understanding that life's hardships could forge hearts of unyielding strength. As David and Emily grew closer, the children, too, began to see her as a steady source of love and guidance. The intermingling of laughter, supportive conversations over dinner, and the joint celebrations of small victories eased the lingering pain of the family's turbulent past. Soon, a new portrait of family emerged, one not defined by absence or betrayal, but by unity, hope, and a shared commitment to rising above life's challenges. One crisp afternoon, as David, Emily, and the children strolled together in a sunlit park, a sense of peace enveloped them. David looked at his children's bright faces and at Emily's caring smile and felt an overwhelming gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. Standing beneath a canopy of gently swaying trees, he reflected on the long road he had traveled, from the shattered morning when everything was lost, to the steadfast determination that rebuilt a home out of despair. In that reflective moment, David's heart resonated with a simple, profound truth, a truth that he would carry forward every day. You may leave when it gets hard, but true strength is staying and fighting, for it is the struggle that makes you who you are. And so, with courage in his eyes and a future filled with promise ahead, David Morgan stepped into his new life, not as a man defined by what he had lost, but by the love, resilience, and triumph he had earned along the way. I hope you enjoyed this story. Leave a comment, sharing your thoughts about it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new and equally exciting stories. See you in the next video.